Hi, and welcome to the fifth episode of our podcast. Hi, Valeria Buzaker.
Hi, how are you?
I'm good, thank you. How are you?
Amazing.
Great. So, just before we begin, 10 seconds of our listeners' time to our disclaimer.
Yeah, right. So, all the information provided today will be only general information for you to remember and to know, but will not be construed as any legal advice or any other types of advice.
And this conversation is with regard to Ontario law. Now, Valeria, you probably remember the couple from the last episodes. At the beginning, they bought a house with us, and then they started a business, and now, 2 years after that, they actually consider to do some franchising. What do you say about that?
They became, I guess, very successful. If they decided to become a franchisor, it's definitely another step of creating your own brand to be spread out.
And that could be a good time just to talk a little bit about that term, franchising. What is franchising, actually?
So franchising business is a business where an owner of a very successful brand is granting a license to another company or individual to be able to use their trademark, to be able to use their proprietary knowledge, and to be able to sell the products or services which are provided by the franchisor. The franchisor is also able to provide you with some training and knowledge that you can acquire and use for your future.
But what exactly are the benefits of the franchisor? Why would someone want to be a franchisor?
So surprisingly enough, we invited today another guest. He is a successful franchisor who completely built his own franchise with some partners to discuss the advantages of being a franchisor.
Right. Earlier today, we spoke to Benny Pressman. Now, Benny is a serial entrepreneur and the co-founder and former CEO of Metropolitan Movers that have over 15 franchisees all over Canada.
Hello, Benny.
Hi, Benny. Thanks for being with us today.
Hi, thanks for having me.
Could you please shed some light from your practical perspective on some of the advantages of being franchisor?
Yeah, absolutely. I think at a certain point, most successful small businesses want to scale and expand their business. And unless you're swimming in a sea of available cash, franchising will be the fastest and the most affordable way to scale your business. Each franchisee will bring you something that is called a franchise fee, which can vary between $5,000 and over $100,000 as a one-time fee in buying into your system. Okay, it really depends on your brand and availability of the locations and the location itself and the population in this location. So it varies really. Another huge benefit are the monthly royalties, of course, right? Each franchisee will pay the franchisor something that could vary between 4 and north of 20% of the total revenue. It really depends on the industry. I would say the food industry would be something along the lines of 4 to max 7%. And the service industries are usually have a bigger royalties. It really depends on the industry, but there's a lot of fees that the franchisee will actually pay the franchisor. At the bottom line, if you're a successful local business that is doing well for at least a couple of years, really, your best way to expand and scale with very limited cash is through franchising.
Benny, although you are being a franchisor, what are the advantages of being franchisee?
There are a lot of small advantages, but I'll tell you this. There has been, according to the recent survey by the IFA, which is the International Franchise Association, it's more in US, but it's the biggest franchise association in the world by far. So their survey shows that after 5 years of business, 92% of franchisees are still operating, comparing to 20% of regular small businesses. That means you have an 8% failure of a franchisee comparing to an 80% failure if you open the same small business by yourself. Basically, you're buying into a proven, successful system. In many cases, it's a proven brand. And a lot of people love it, especially if you'll see a lot of executives that are retiring and they are really good at following orders and following a specific system. If it works, they will be perfect, great franchisees. I'm not disclosing everybody, obviously, but I'm just giving an example. They will be the perfect franchisee to follow the rules. So they don't want to invent their own. You're buying a business in a box, and if you want to de-risk your situation in being an entrepreneur, definitely the franchising is the way to go for you.
Now, Benny, obviously you have so much experience. I mean, after seeing so many franchisees along the years and after winning the CFA award for excellence in franchising and winning 6 times the Consumer Choice Award, what is the best tip that you could give to someone who is considering entering franchising?
Great question. Would be a little bit hard for me to pinpoint one great tip, but it's definitely, in let's call it a helicopter view, do your due diligence. There are thousands of franchisors out there. Everybody can open and say they are now franchising. It's relatively easy as long as you have great lawyer. It's a big world out there. You need to make sure that the contract is fair. You must talk to the other franchisees that are already operating in the network. You need to really talk to a lawyer and not say, oh, I don't need a lawyer, just a plain vanilla franchising agreement. No, you have to talk to the lawyer. A lot of franchisors will allow some minor changes in their agreements, really depends on their size. But yeah, due diligence. It's a financial due diligence, their brand recognition due diligence, and the contract, hire a lawyer due diligence. So really, really invest time, because this contract is usually for, I would say, an average of 10 years. With renewal options, and it's a big chunk of your life. So before you make this important step, again, do your due diligence.
Benny Pressman, Chairman of the Board of Metropolitan Movers, thank you very much for joining us today.
Thanks. Good luck.
Thanks, Benny.
Let's talk a little bit, Valeria, about what could go wrong in the relationship of a franchisor and a franchisee. What should we be prepared?
So we have to remember that this kind of relationship is very complex. Being a franchisee means you don't have much freedom or flexibility. It means you have to comply and follow the franchise agreement. Being a franchisor means that you have a duty to act in good faith and fair dealing, duty to disclose material information such as financial statements.
And we should remember that franchise agreements could be terminated by both sides. Let's talk a little bit about that.
So there are potential reasons for you as a franchisor to terminate this agreement in case, for example, the franchisee convicted in a crime or lost his necessary license to operate the type of business, if it's applicable. He fails to pay the royalties. There are some defaults and he fails to correct them. He goes bankrupt or becomes insolvent. He doesn't follow your requirements as a franchisor, or he fails to comply with the required business operation.
And under what circumstances would the franchisee be able to terminate the agreement?
That could happen in many cases, such as if the franchisor fails to provide proper training to the franchisee. This is the whole idea behind being a franchisor. Or he commits a fraud. This is a big deal. Also, if there are misrepresentation by the franchisor.
And it could be on a financial background as well, right?
So we have to keep in mind that the franchisor can also go bankrupt or become insolvent. And this can be also a reason to terminate the agreement by the franchisee.
And when that happens, in many cases, the franchisee has the right to transfer his rights to other party.
That's correct. And like I said before, we have to make sure we review the agreement and we get the franchisor permission. But this type of scenario can be beneficial for both parties, for franchisor as well as the franchisee, by giving the option, if it's under the agreement, of course, to the franchisee to transfer his rights to another person or a company.
Which is super important.
Yes, for sure, for both parties.
Valeria Buzaker, thank you very much for that.
Thank you very much for listening to us, and we'll be very glad to receive some feedback as well as comments to our YouTube channel.
And the email is
info, I-N-F-O, @vblegal.ca.
Thanks, Valeria, for this episode, and see you next time.
See you next episode. Bye-bye.